This is Aryana Rollins. You're listening to the Manifesting Guide podcast. How do you recognize when a blocker is running and what blockers are? Well, that's exactly what we're talking about today on the Manifesting Guide. But just before we do that, if you're tired of pushing and forcing yourself to get things done, get your Manifest Without Force or Frustration gift at highertrueself.com. It's completely free. Hey, and if you'd like notifications when I release a new episode, go to highertrueself.com/podcast and subscribe. So let's get into episode 46. What are blockers? Funny story. My beloved friend can't stand the name blockers. Whenever I use the word, I feel her bristle. It really triggers her. So over the many years I've known her, she's wanted to help me find a better name or way to share what they are. I love her so much. So a while ago, she sent me a recording of a talk she listened to about what someone had to say about blockers. I'm sorry, I don't know the man's name. It was just a short audio clip. So yesterday I listened to the recording and it was interesting. I enjoyed it. The man had a clever way of describing blockers. He was saying that they're like a spell. And when you're hypnotized, you're under a spell. You're not operating from, this is me putting this in, he didn't say it, from the strength and power of yourself, but rather the spell is influencing. His perception is that there are no blockers and that everything dissolves when we are present. And stop trying to look for blockers. Stop trying to resolve blockers. Well, while there's truth to that, in my experience, how easy is it to be an Eckhart Tolle and instantly align with the present moment? When we're frustrated, when we're angry, when we're sad, when we're discouraged, when we're overwhelmed, when we've got a full day. Well, I can tell you, when I'm triggered, that's nearly nigh impossible for me to align with the present moment and pull out an Eckhart Tolle moment. That's where the value is in recognizing what a blocker is and how to resolve it, how to clear it. So when we do a blocker clearing, is that it builds inner resources to help us in those very moments when we've been triggered. But we don't work it out in the moment we're triggered. We pre-work it out. So we have a way to handle that situation differently. I'll give an example in just a moment. So the benefit, as I see, of clearing and resolving a blocker pattern is that we can recognize and establish from a calm place a new way of acting, behaving, and perceiving. So it's like, I've recommend Dr. Joe Dispenza's meditations a lot. And he has one of my favorite ones where you're actually practicing how you want to handle a situation. It's particularly called Breaking Habits and Addictions. So you're seeing yourself making a different choice. That's at a very, very low level of blocker clearing, but it's recognizing when the blocker is about to make a choice, and then we can choose differently. So once we resolve the pattern, it gives us the power to choose differently. And we get to craft how we want to handle the situation if it comes up again. Because, we live on planet Earth. It's going to come up again. And we need a way to respond that's loving and successful for all involved. And here's the thing, is that we need to understand that blockers can hear. I know that sounds weird, right? So I liken our body as the storehouse of our unconscious mind. So when something happens to us, life experience, a disappointment, a failure, a loss, our blockers record their version of what they see, what they hear, and what they believe happened, their perception. Rarely is that version of what the blocker recorded in our unconscious mind anyway close to the truth. It's the blocker's biased version of what happened. It's been influenced by our history. We'll talk about that in just a moment, in more detail. So over time, these kind of perception blockers affect our ability to really see what's going on, ask the right questions, have patience when a loved one is telling us an uncomfortable truth or their experience of how we're relating to them. So these perceptions can blind us from what would be the most successful decision and behavior in the moment. We've just got triggered. Here's an example. Maybe you can relate. Have you ever been late for work or an appointment and you couldn't find your car keys? After maybe a few minutes, half an hour, you realize you're going to be late. So you make a phone call and you say you're going to be late. I need to reschedule the appointment. And a little while later, and this is key, when you weren't even looking for your keys, you see that your keys were right where you looked, where you always placed them. And you knew you looked there. You shake your head saying, they couldn't have been there. I didn't even see the keys. I don't know if you can relate, but I know I've done this before. That's the power of the influence of having a blocker active. We can't see what's right in front of us, which means that if we make a decision when a blocker is active, if we yell back at our partner when they've just said, hey, I felt really hurt when you said that, or you didn't take me out for my birthday, if we react, we're not choosing the most empowering path. We're choosing the familiar, the known path. And that, my friends, is what I witness as people get older. In our youth, we are full of vibrant optimism that anything is possible. We're open to life. We're learning, we're growing, we're evolving. And the older we get, the more life experience we have, the more resistant to change we become. We don't want to risk what we already have, even if what we already have isn't what we really want. Can you relate? I remember when I was in my 30s, I saw this flash. I don't know, maybe somebody would call it revelation. I don't know. It was an image, an awareness that around 50 years old, that there's these cement boots that start to form around us. And it makes it really hard to make different choices and change. And I committed from that moment on, all those like 30 years ago now, that was not going to be my life. So I was going to make choices that maybe from the outside world, people couldn't understand, they couldn't relate. But I knew that if I keep myself in movement and I keep myself vibrant and alive and not coagulating, that I would be able to respond to life in new ways and have new experiences. Now, have I still got stuck? Yes, but maybe a little less stuck than some. There's no perfect path out there. So I'd like to share a definition that comes from Stuart Lichtman, the developer of cybernetic transposition. And he wrote the book, How to Get Lots of Money for Anything Fast. And if you'd like to check it out, it's a great background to this work. And you can go to cyberneticmastery.com. Okay. So according to Stuart Lichtman, blockers are self-defeating unconscious habit patterns. I know that's a mouthful. I'll say it in English. Blockers are ways of thinking and acting that come from our experience, our life history. They are trying to protect us from disappointment or failure. Now that sounds like a good thing, right? Who wants to be disappointed? Who wants to fail? Well, but that's not always a good thing, because they could try to protect us from starting a new exercise program and joining a gym. It can remind you of all the times you've joined the gym in the past, wasting money signing up for a year's membership and not using it. It can remind you of how hard it was to get out of bed on a cold winter's morning to get to the gym before work. It can remind you how uncomfortable you felt when you compared your body to all the other people working out who seemed to be fit and strong and young. It can remind you of how sore you felt, and the next day it was kind of hard to get out of bed. So all of those experiences of getting fit, joining a gym, will come by in a flash. And you're not going to be conscious of it. You're just going to feel this resistance to signing that gym membership. Now, with all those experiences flooding you, You're going to feel discouraged. You're going to feel hopeless. You're going to feel this is a waste of money. Maybe you're going to, you're going to think, I'm just going to do it all over again. And now I have to deal with my spouse, my partner, who's going to say, you've joined gyms like 5 times. You just don't go. What are you thinking? So you may not be conscious of all those experiences, but the blocker has recorded them and is now active trying to protect you from, quote, wasting money or feeling bad about yourself. Now, again, nothing wrong with that, but is it your conscious choice today? If you were able to clear all of the disappointment and the failure around getting fit in the past, would you be able to make a more conscious, more powerful choice? I absolutely think so. So then you can add it up. Is this the right gym? Is it the one that I feel comfortable working out? Does it have the kind of people I want to relate to? Is it close to me? Will I be able to roll out of bed on a cold morning and be able to go? So when you prepare yourself and you reason it out, then you're going to make a more powerful and more successful decision, which is what happens when you clear a blocker. You prepare your reaction in the moment you get triggered. Are you starting to see how subtle this all is? Now, if you're triggered by what I just shared, like my beloved friend, that's normal. Blockers can cause us to not want to hear something. And that, here's a funny thing, they can push the truth away, dismiss it, or even argue with the messenger. I've been there. I've put blinders up to not want to hear what my partner said, trying to get me to see. And finally, eventually, when I did see it, I was like, oh my goodness, now I know what he was trying to show me. Well, I try not to blame and shame myself because sometimes, blockers are strong. And that they don't really want to give up their influence over us. For whatever reason, they think they're trying to help. I truly believe that. They do. But fortunately for me now, I have the tools to recognize when a blocker has been activated. Sometimes I will feel it in my body. There will be a body sensation, a communication that normally I was feeling relaxed, and now I've got a tightness in my lower belly, or I'm having shallow breathing, where before I was perfectly fine. And that's an indication that I may have been triggered. So I would explore those sudden shifts in body feelings. And that's a lot of the work we do in all of our programs, and especially the Highest Potential program, our year-long program. So because I have the tools, I can recognize a bit better than I used to be able to when a blocker's active, and then I'm not operating from my highest, most healed self. So if this is new to you, what can you do right now? First, start to become aware when a blocker is active. So that means that you've got that moment of awareness, maybe after the blocker kind of told somebody off, or you instead of following through on something you agreed to do today and you procrastinated, be aware of that. Write it down. And I've got a really great exercise called Trigger Awareness Process. So if you're listening to this podcast, reach out to me on facebook.com/Higher True Self. That's our business page. And say, hey, Aryana, I want the Trigger Awareness Process, and I will send it to you. Normally that's only available, it's always only available in our programs or with my paid clients. But this work is so important, I want to share it with you. Okay. So recognize when a blocker is active, and that little exercise will help you do it. Second, take your power back from blockers. It's just a mess of emotional energy in there and coping mechanisms that are no longer serving you. So if you're tired of blockers making decisions for your life, like the choice of food you eat when you want to go on a diet, how you use your time when you're procrastinating on projects, or even what projects you work on, or how you communicate to your partner, or how you parent, or how you manage your money. how you make your money, then I highly, highly recommend you get the book, The Manifesting Guide. I wrote the book, and it goes into detail about what the most common types of blockers are and helps you with a wonderful, gentle exercise called blocker bypass. So you can move forward on what's important to you and be in your highest healed self and really just radically change your life. So go to themanifestingguide.com and you can get the audio version of it right away. And also there are guided exercises that you can print out and do. And there are audio instructions, guided meditation. You get the ebook version too. It's a great start to understand the complexity of taking your power back from blockers and also to empower yourself by working with your unconscious mind. Oh my gosh, so good. It's so good, especially tapping in to that area of presence, which is your true self. So going back, let's circle back to the beginning of the podcast where my friend was sharing this audio clip that when we are in presence, blockers dissolve. Absolutely true, my friend. I know this to be the case. And that's a little bit harder for people to jump to from where they're operating now to that, what I call true self-alignment, that place of presence. But it's possible. We do that in our highest potential program, our year-long program. But enough about that. Thank you so much for listening. And if you like this episode, share it with someone. Maybe leave a review at podchaser.com and definitely subscribe. I can't wait to share more work with you that's so valuable, so valuable. So much love to you. And remember, self-confirmation frees you to succeed on your terms. To thine own self be true.